Hey, what is up, mortals? Welcome to part 6 season 1 of What If Villains Had an Academia. Just wanted to greet you guys by just saying sit back and relax. You're in for a treat, and so we begin. Izuku, can we talk for a little bit? Himiko approached the freckled fighter, rubbing her arm nervously. This was highly unusual for Toga, and Midoriya took note of the past month they had spent together. Not once did she show any sign of meekness. Oh, of course, Himiko. What is it? The green-haired helper inquired. He tilted his head slightly, both curious and somewhat surprised. After glancing in their guard's position, the blood-sucking blonde took a deep breath before erupting into a massive, stupid grin like her normal self. This time, though, it didn't seem so intimidating. I like you. Like, really like you. And the pseudo-changeling rubbed the back of her neck, yet again glancing back at the officer who merely gave her a sidelong glance and a thumbs up. When her eyes returned to the heroic team before her, his face was fire engine red, hidden behind his hands. Izuku, I know we're both gonna go to the hero course, but I really want to go out with you. You're really cute and I could just hug you forever, and I don't know how to really show it any other proper way. Usually I would just try and be someone to show them I love them and want them to be mine. But I like you the way you are. I don't need to be you to show you I care for you, right? At this point, once the blonde bombshell turned to her heart's desire, Midoriya might as well have passed out. He was sputtering, and his hands fidgeted with his hair when not covering his beet-red face. He couldn't properly form a sentence. But Toga was patient and waited for the flustered fanboy to collect himself a bit more. I guess. As long as you know my schoolwork and TR training is T-top priority for me right now. After getting out a few words, Izuku took a deep and shaky breath. He looked the vampiric mimic in the eyes and, shaky yet determined, reaffirmed his sentiments. A glint of mischievous and perhaps even primal need flashed in her eyes. So do you want to have our first kiss now or later? At this, Midoriya could hardly get out the K sound before passing out, cheeks burning red hot. Himiko giggled as the guard stormed over to the pair and ensured the flustered lad was safe and sound. The officer chuckled softly and shook his head after ensuring Izuku's security. Himiko, that's a little too soon, don't you think? There are a lot of milestones in a relationship, and your first kiss should be something special. Remember to take it at a pace you're both comfortable with, and don't rush it. If it's meant to be, it will be, yeah. But Mr. Guard, why do people need to go slow? Why not go all in and forget about beating around the bush? If it's meant to be, it'll work out, right? At this, the officer smiled, shaking his head and attempting to collect his thoughts in a straightforward commentary. Himiko, there are a lot of reasons, but the most important one is how their mental state is. You may not have heard, and don't tell anyone I told you this, but Izuku there recently underwent a lot of trauma at the hands of a quirk-giving villain. The room suddenly gained a strained and tense air. The officer could tell Toga knew exactly who All for One was, and that was not good for him or for the family he wished to help protect. If she was in a league with that villain, then who knows what her real goals could be. Maybe she had a second quirk he wasn't aware of, or maybe she knew who he was already and was sent to kill him. As nervous as this train of thought made the shriveled savior, the doubt of this as being reality kept All Might from leaping to full defense. The number one hero knew that this charismatic convict was being genuine. He'd seen enough liars to tell when someone was attempting to be manipulative. And having every conceivable sign checked off as non-present, there was but a single conclusion for the symbol of peace. This vampiric mimic truly did care about his student. The mind of Toga, meanwhile, was forced to fight off the urge to blast in All for One's door and crush him for hurting her. Izuku, her mind, for the first time in years, was dealing with a jumble of emotions instead of just one or two at a time. She hated the feeling, but there was something else that came with this cavalcade of feelings. A passion, a burning want deep within the pseudo-changeling. Himiko wanted nothing more than to help heal Izuku from whatever All for One did to him. She felt proud of herself for actually avoiding her quirk as a lean-to. And despite confusion on pace and expressions of love, the blood-sucking blonde realized that this course of action was much easier and more fulfilling than anything she'd attempted in the past. The advice of this geezer had genuinely helped her, which was unfortunately a statement the blonde bombshell simply couldn't honestly admit about any other elder she'd met to date. Toga knew being a hero was important for the freckled fighter, and from what she'd seen, it was integrated into the green-haired examinee's very being. If letting him go on his way meant she'd be able to care for the adorable overachiever, love him and be loved by him, then Himiko would gladly let herself come in after all schoolwork got taken care of. Despite all of the advice given to her by this mysterious officer, she couldn't help but mentally complain about something that ate at her bit by bit for years before now. If there was anyone who could answer this question honestly and intelligently, it would be the spindly man directly in front of her. Clearing her throat, Toga responded to the undercover hero's statement. I understand that, but that's why I want to hurry this along. I want to get close to him as soon as possible so that I can help him, so I can really love him and so he can really love me. Why can't it be that easy, Mr. Guard? Toga was genuinely disheartened at this point, the question clearly bothering her to a significant degree. The parole officer crossed his arms as he tilted his head up in contemplation. If I have to guess, I'd imagine it's not easy because nothing easy is worth the time. Putting effort towards something means you really want it, and it means it'll be more rewarding when you finally do get a hold of it. The hero in disguise rubbed his neck with a hand, looking down in more serious concentration. I know you want life to be easy, Himiko. I really do get it. Nobody likes things to be difficult. Sometimes, though, it's a necessary part of life. If everything were easy, then difficulty wouldn't exist. It's like war and peace, or like life and death. And sometimes, it's worth it to put your all into something, or someone, and then some. To go beyond, plus ultra. All Might ended this with a flamboyant fist pump, which made the pseudo-changeling smile a little bit. However, his tidbit of knowledge gave the blood-sucking blonde pause, forcing her to consider what she truly wanted. The odd duo sat in thoughtful silence for a while before Himiko sighed. Snapping herself out of the daydreaming state she put herself in, then walked into the heroic examinee's bedroom. Before the guard could get a word out, a bit afraid of what she would do within the young man's room, Toga came back with a blanket, carefully and quietly covering up Izuku. Mr. Guard, I don't like talking about myself. Nobody gets me, you know. But him. The motherly murderer lovingly looked in the direction of her love interest. Maybe he doesn't get me, but he cares about me. It doesn't matter that he doesn't get me, he gave me a chance, and he saved me. I may not be able to bring up much more than that, but... The pseudo-changeling looked up at All Might with a genuine, soft, kind smile. This caught him off balance, and what came next made him choke up a bit. Thank you for stopping me from doing things I know I'd regret. I didn't know how else to. Shaking her head, the blood-sucking bombshell giggled, giving one of her trademark smiles. You're just a nice guy, you know that, Mr. Guard. Achako's body ached, her mind reeling. The quirks were constantly being applied and removed, trying to fit every puzzle piece in a box together one by one through trial and error. She couldn't let herself talk anymore, unless the levitating lady wanted to forfeit her brain functions. The feeling of getting parts that weren't hers sewn into her essence, her very being, only to be ripped off like a bandage. None of them felt right in her body. And the thought of having generations of people skimming her very DNA causing her to nearly gag on more than one occasion. She knew that All for One wanted to make her suffer, wanted to test this newcomer's resolve. The gravitational girl held on with any mental handhold she could possibly grip, and through it all, the conglomeration of quirks grew ever more impressed. Finally, after far too long, the criminal overlord gave Uraraka some breathing room. He removed his hand from her head, allowing her to come back to her senses. The floating student collapsed onto the floor in a heap, vomiting and coughing, before wiping off her mouth with her coat sleeve and discarding it to her side. The amalgamation of abilities grinned broadly as he looked over his latest work. Despite the pain she'd gone through before, Achako felt fine now. Staring at her new mutations in disbelief, the levitating lass prodded at her arm. It was now layered in a number of odd plates or scales of some sort. At a certain angle, it seemed to reflect its surroundings, effective tactical camouflage. In addition, the gravitational girl felt energetic and light on her feet. Her gut felt far better than it usually did, on account of excessive and exhaustive quirk practice. Her skin had faded to a duller navy blue color, and looking at her eyes through her reflective scales, she noted her irises had turned a shade of hot pink. The levitating lass soon noticed one detail she hadn't seen before. A small horn, tan and how she'd imagine a unicorn horn would look, rested directly above her right eye, just below her hairline upon her forehead. She gently touched it, surprised at how sharp it was. The time-space tinkerer looked back to All for One in confusion. Without needing to speak a word, Uraraka knew he wanted the latest amalgamation of his creation to head inside the school. With a smile, Achako gladly obliged, perhaps a bit too curious at how much stronger she had become. All for One took a refreshing breath as we watched his newest custom-made Namu enter the school. He couldn't help but proudly pat himself on the back for such impeccable handiwork. Now to dispose of the latest body. Amy or Emmy or something, was it? The criminal overlord couldn't quite remember. It was a short, sweet name for one with a short, sweet life. He chuckled. This sort of irony always tickled him. Thank you all for indulging yourselves in the story thus far. Hope you enjoyed it. Now there are a few more things that I'd like to go over before the video ends. Firstly, we've got a second channel called Anime Deep Dive. Anime Deep Dive goes deep into the facts and lore of a wide variety of anime. It's sure to expand your weeb knowledge for all kinds of series guaranteed. On top of that, we have a third channel called We The Celestials Naruto What Ifs. It's what we do on this channel already but in the vast world and lore of Naruto. Go check it out if you're in the mood for some jutsu action. I'd like to let you all know on behalf of We The Celestials. I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details will be in the description below. If you're perhaps interested in what we do here at WTC, then I would like to extend out an invitation to join the team. The only caveat being we only accept members 16 and older to join our crew. You can find us on our Discord, which you can locate in the description below. Our Discord is an all-around fantastic place to be, whether you're a fan or looking to join our band of misfits. All you gotta do is hit up the recruitment server and sign up for whichever category of work that fulfills your interest. We're always looking for members to join us. Well, that's it from us for today's video. So thank you all for watching and have a great day.